Hi everyone, welcome to The Dark Turn. Thanks so much for being here and for clicking on this video. I truly appreciate every bit of support you give to your channel. Before we get into tonight's story, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's begin. I pulled my black scarf forward so that nothing but my eyes and a little skin beneath them could be seen. My mother-in-law, who was sitting next to me, frowned and said, "Najma, cover your hands. Either wear gloves or do something. It doesn't look proper for your white hands to be showing. You're not just anyone's wife, you're the wife of this town's judge." I calmly replied, "Habibe Khanum, they say in our religion it's fine if just the face and hands are visible. What else am I supposed to do? It's too hot for gloves." She frowned harder and turned away sharply. I knew that look all too well. She wasn't done. She would definitely report it to my husband later, and then the silent treatment would start again. After sitting there awkwardly for a bit, I stood up, said goodbye, and went upstairs to my own place, right above hers. I'd been married for a year now. It was an arranged marriage. My father thought this match was perfect for me. I didn't really want it, but in our house, questioning my father's word was unthinkable. That's how it was for all my brothers and sisters. None of us chose our own path. Since becoming Mahmoud's wife, life had been strange. Everything felt overly proper and suffocating. He was cautious, meticulous. Years of working as a judge had made him paranoid and analytical. Every word you said, he would dissect, question, and argue about until your head hurt. I wasn't built for that kind of life. The mansion, the fancy car parked outside, they meant nothing to me. What good were they if I couldn't feel alive? Honestly, I would have preferred a small wooden house in a quiet village with chickens running around, wearing a floral dress and my hair loose in the wind. That would have made me happier. Even my clothes weren't chosen by me. Hakame Khanum, my mother-in-law, picked them or ordered them from designer boutiques. Those heavy, stone-embroidered dresses, none of them were my taste. I wore them because I had to, not because I liked them. That day, we had guests. She told me since morning to come downstairs. I went, smiled politely, and sat there while a few men and women, family friends, I guess, chatted with my in-laws. Suddenly, she turned to me again. "Why are your hands visible?" I said nothing. Later, when she ignored me completely, I got up mid-gathering, said goodbye, and went upstairs. In my mind, I said, "You know she's going to tell Mahmoud and make it a big deal anyway, so what's the point of sitting there pretending?" I turned on the TV and tried to distract myself with a drama series. When I saw the guy text the girl on screen, I suddenly teared up. My husband had never sent me a single text message. He didn't even call, unless it was something extremely important, and even then, he'd call the landline, talk for 30 seconds in that cold, commanding tone, and hang up like he was giving orders to a soldier. I wished I could cook for him, at least make our home feel like mine. But I wasn't allowed. Every evening, one of the servants would knock and bring a tray of dinner from downstairs. Usually, they'd insist we eat with the family, but sometimes, if Mahmoud said he was tired, we'd get food delivered upstairs. Back at my parents' house, I used to be active and free. I played guitar, went swimming, excelled at university. I wasn't rebellious, but I wasn't this restricted either. Sure, I wore the chador, a long black covering, most of my life, but I'd learned how to be stylish with it, how to make it mine. It never made me feel trapped. But here, everything felt like a cage. It wasn't about the veil. It was about the rules. Here, even showing my hands caused gossip. Part 4. Mahmoud had 4 brothers and 1 sister. He was the 3rd son. The 2 older brothers were already married, both successful, one a colonel, another working in the Supreme Court. The youngest wasn't married yet. Their father, a retired judge himself, was the head of this powerful, conservative family. His unmarried sister still lived downstairs with the parents and youngest brother. And me? I was just the quiet new bride upstairs, trying to breathe in a world that never felt like mine. Out of boredom, I went to the bedroom, opened the last drawer where I kept my makeup. I remembered how I used to dream of getting married, doing my makeup freely, wearing what I wanted. But here I was, in a mansion full of silence, rules, and eyes that always watched. I used to take care of myself, but after marriage they even controlled my eyebrows. Hakame would say, "Why would you pluck your eyebrows? They're already pretty." Mahmoud didn't pay any attention to what my eyebrows or my face looked like, who I even was. Now the whole extended family, especially my own relatives, envied my life in a strange way. Look, so-and-so became the judge's wife. Their wealth is endless. They're so powerful. They thought by giving their daughter away they'd secured a lifetime of status. But in this house, I felt like I was suffocating every single moment. It's hard to be somewhere where you constantly feel you're being smothered, like a fish thrown out of water. I wanted to order a whole bunch of makeup for myself. Even though there was plenty of money and wealth in this house, my own card was empty. They didn't give me money. If I needed anything, I had to ask Mahmoud. And because I was proud by nature, I'd never asked for anything before. Mahmoud always filled the fridge, and Hakame assumed she would buy whatever clothes I might want. Everything in the house felt staged, like a glossy show, but my bank card had no money. I thought if I asked her to order makeup for me, she'd say, "What do you need makeup for? Why are you thinking about these things?" So I didn't bother arguing. Using the few cosmetics I had brought from my parents' home, I started doing my makeup. After I finished, I straightened my hair with the blow dryer and let it fall around my shoulders. I put on a short black satin dress I had. It was 2 p.m. Mahmoud wouldn't be home for ages. He usually came back around 10 at night, barely showing up. I put my earbuds in and started dancing to a Nancy Ajram song. I couldn't help myself. Growing up in a very religious family, I'd always been a little flashy about these things. My mom used to scold me for dancing. I always used to say, "Okay, I was wrong. It won't happen again." But this time, I was done. I'd had enough. And I guess that's where my story really begins, right when I was at my breaking point. He got mad too and shouted, "Why did you take that dress off when you saw me? Why did you wash your face?" Then he added bitterly, "If I wanted someone to just bring me tea and run away to her room, I'd call one of the maids, not you." I stared at him, speechless, wondering what on earth he was talking about. My eyes filled with tears as I said, "Do you remember the day I wore red lipstick for you? Do you remember what you did?" He yelled again, "Why can't you understand situations? Why do you lack so much sense? We were going out that day, and I told you not to wear that lipstick. Didn't I say not to wear lipstick at home?" I stood up, my voice trembling but firm. "You keep nagging so much you can't even remember which day I'm talking about. No one's dumb enough to wear red lipstick under a scarf. I'm talking about the night you came home and saw me wearing it, and you said, 'What if someone else came in? What if my brother showed up? Who were you trying to impress?'" I cursed my luck under my breath. In the years since I'd been his wife, he had come home at noon only 2 or 3 times, and he was supposed to be home today at noon. I swallowed hard, met his waiting eyes, and said, honestly, I was bored. I was exercising. Then I thought I'd film myself so I could watch it later. He leaned toward me and said quietly, "Exercising like that?" I looked at him without answering. Then he said, "Why do you always underestimate me? Millions of people have sat in front of me and spoken. Why do you think you can lie to me without me noticing? Do you think I'm some child who's easy to fool?" I got angry, but kept it under control. I looked back at him and said, "Why am I being interrogated now? I go to work every day. I'm not a criminal. Why are you grabbing my wrist so hard and staring at me like I'm a suspect?" He seemed to snap out of it a little and loosened his grip, but he didn't stop staring. I was trembling and close to tears, and I continued, "I was just exercising. I was dancing because I liked it and wanted to film myself. Why are you questioning me for that?" It was the first time I had ever spoken to him so bluntly. I always used to say, "Okay, I was wrong. It won't happen again." But this time, I was done. I'd had enough. And I guess that's where my story really begins, right when I was at my breaking point. He got mad too and shouted, "Why did you take that dress off when you saw me? Why did you wash your face?" Then he added bitterly, "If I wanted someone to just bring me tea and run away to her room, I'd call one of the maids, not you." I stared at him, speechless, wondering what on earth he was talking about. My eyes filled with tears as I said, "Do you remember the day I wore red lipstick for you? Do you remember what you did?" He yelled again, "Why can't you understand situations? Why do you lack so much sense? We were going out that day, and I told you not to wear that lipstick. Didn't I say not to wear lipstick at home? I stood up, my voice trembling but firm. You keep nagging so much you can't even remember which day I'm talking about. No one's dumb enough to wear red lipstick under a scarf. I'm talking about the night you came home and saw me wearing it, and you said, "What if someone else came in? What if my brother showed up? Who were you trying to impress?" I sighed bitterly. I'd rather just put your tea down and stay away from you. We had never argued like that before. Usually, he shouted, and I stayed silent. But not this time. This time, I said everything I'd kept inside. At the end, I pointed my finger at him and said, "This isn't your courtroom, and I'm not one of your criminals. Next time, learn how to talk to me. You should have learned what life and love mean before getting married." He looked furious, his face red. "What are you even saying? I've seen 1,000 divorces in my life. You think I don't know how to handle my wife? You keep running away from me. What do you expect me to do? Should I tie you down? You think avoiding me will make me stop loving you? You haven't even been able to give me a child in a year." I laughed sarcastically through my tears. "A child? Why should I bring a child into this house when I can barely breathe here? You think I feel happy enough to raise someone else in this misery? What if one day that kid looks me in the eye and asks why I brought them into a life where their mother wasn't even happy herself?" He clenched his jaw and said, "You're unbelievable. What else do you want? You have everything: money, respect, a husband everyone envies, and you still say you're not happy?" I whispered, "My happiness isn't in this house full of fancy furniture and glittering dresses." He smirked. "Then what is your happiness? Showing off your body and dancing in the streets?" I looked straight into his eyes. "No. My happiness is feeling respected, having confidence, being myself. Today, your mother dragged me downstairs and insulted me in front of everyone. She said my hands looked too white and asked why I wasn't wearing gloves. In this heat. Gloves inside the house. I didn't say a word, I just walked away. Maybe I can tolerate your mother, your father, and all these fake smiles from your relatives. But your attitude, that's what I can't take anymore. You stand over me with that angry face, watching me like I did something wrong. Of course I run away from you. I wipe off my makeup, change my clothes, and hide. Not because I'm guilty, but because I'm scared." I paused, tears rolling down my cheeks. "You think I'm stupid. You think you're some kind of god who has to manage me like one of your cases. But I'm not your toy. I'm not your doll. I have a mind, a soul, and a voice of my own." My voice cracked. "I regret quitting my job, leaving my studies, my classes, all for you. Now I just sit here all day, staring at the walls, feeling them close in on me. And for what? For a man who doesn't even see me anymore." I sighed. "Forget it. Talking to you is pointless." After that horrible fight, I went to my room and shut the door. It was the first time I'd ever walked away like that. A few minutes later, he left the house. I sat there crying when the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Hakame. As soon as I answered, she snapped, "You embarrass me at lunch. We have guests for dinner, come downstairs immediately." Then she hung up. Both of my sisters-in-law were her relatives. I was the only outsider in that house. They all got along perfectly. I tried to be friendly too. Even when they insulted or criticized me, I stayed quiet. But they'd really crossed the line. I took a shower, got dressed, and stood in front of the mirror, staring at the woman I'd become. I told myself, from now on, live the way you want. If they want you, they'll keep you. If they don't, walk away. If your family doesn't take you in, who cares? You'll figure it out. What kind of life was I even living? I put some moisturizer on my face, shaped my eyebrows a little, added mascara, a bit of blush, and a light lipstick. Then I brushed my hair, braided it, and threw it over my shoulder. I wore a long dress with thick leggings underneath, made sure not a single strand of hair showed, wrapped a white floral scarf around my head, and covered it with a white chador. I put on my bracelet and ring, sprayed some perfume, and went downstairs. Mahamud was already sitting there. My sisters-in-law, Zara and Roge, were there too. I greeted everyone and sat next to them. We had guests again, we always did. This house was never empty. To be fair, they were good hosts. The best food, the best setup, everything perfect. The guests had a little boy and oh, he was adorable. The moment I saw him, my heart melted. I leaned toward him and said, "Well, look who's here. What's your name, handsome?" He smiled shyly. "Puria," he said. I picked him up and started playing with him. He was so ticklish that every time I reached for his sides, he burst into laughter. His giggles filled the whole room, and everyone started smiling. Even his mom was laughing, hiding her face behind her scarf. "He gets it from his dad," she said, still laughing. My youngest brother-in-law, Mortiza, the only single one, joked, "So what, if we tickle Mr. Ahmad, he'll laugh like that too." Everyone burst out laughing. I adjusted Puria in my arms and said, "Fatme, why does your son keep biting his nails like that?" She sighed. "I don't know. He always does. I've told him to stop, but he just keeps doing it." I said softly, "You should try to find out why he's doing it. Kids usually do that when they're anxious. He's got hidden stress. You can tell from how he moves his feet and fidgets." The conversation shifted to how everyone has stress, that it's genetic, part of life. The men joined in, talking about work stress, and soon the women followed. Eventually, Fatme and I were talking quietly on our own. She sighed and said, "My husband and I fight so much. I think that's why my son's always anxious." I said gently, "Oh no. I hope things get better soon. Maybe a psychologist could help." She looked at me with kind eyes. "You know, I really like you. You feel like a sister to me. Can I be honest?" I smiled. "Of course you can. You can tell me anything." She glanced at her husband, then leaned closer. "My husband's good-looking and charming. He's a lawyer. Women are always around him. I get jealous all the time. We argue constantly." I looked at her closely. She seemed around 50, but her husband looked barely 30, a striking man. I gave her the contact info for a few doctors and said, "Why are you just sitting at home, wearing yourself down? Go see someone. This one's great for mental health. This one for your skin. This one for your fitness. You need to take care of you." She smiled and saved the numbers in her phone. After dinner, the guests finally left. Mahamud turned to me and said coldly, "Let's go upstairs." I said goodbye to everyone and got into the elevator with him. We didn't say a single word. Once we got home, he went to take a shower. I started reading a book. I'd already showered twice that day and felt exhausted. I lay down on the couch, and before I knew it, I'd fallen asleep. When I opened my eyes, it was 2:30 in the morning. I was still lying on the couch. I was about to turn over when I saw him, sitting at the foot of the couch, going through my phone. I froze. He was scrolling through my chats, with my sister, my friends, my calls, then he opened my gallery. He found the video I'd recorded that afternoon, the one where I was dancing. Then another one, a clip of me playing guitar and singing. You know what's strange? For once, I didn't even care that he was invading my privacy. He'd ignored me for so long that, in some twisted way, this felt like attention. Like maybe, just maybe, he cared enough to look. He paused on each picture for a few seconds. Then he scrolled back further, to photos from a year ago, before I got married. There I was, at a cafe with my friends, laughing, wearing my regular clothes. Nothing scandalous. Just me. Free. He shook his head slowly, disappointed, like a judge delivering a silent verdict. My heart sank. I bit my lip, terrified of what tomorrow morning would bring. Then, to my shock, he did something else. He took out his own phone, transferred a few of our couple photos, along with the dancing video and some pictures of me, onto his device. Then he turned my phone off, placed it back where it was, and sat there for a moment in silence. I closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. He always said, "I know everything. Nothing gets past me." And that night, I was terrified he might know I was awake. My eyes were still closed when he slipped his arm under my legs and lifted me up. He carried me to the bedroom and laid me on the bed. I couldn't pretend to be asleep any longer. I opened my eyes and looked at him. The moment I did, he frowned like he had made a deal with himself to frown whenever I looked at him. He said, "You were sleeping so soundly. Why didn't you come sleep on the bed?" I pulled the blanket over myself, gave him a sharp look, and said, "Well, you carried me a whole half-meter. It's not like you lost any muscles doing it." He just stared at me silently. I was still mad at him, so I turned my back to him and lay down. He was so stubborn, so full of pride. I waited 5 minutes, hoping he'd come closer, hold me, say something sweet. But nothing. He just went asleep. In the morning when I woke up, he was already gone. I had breakfast, then picked up my phone. I hesitated, should I call him or not? Then I thought, why not? It was rare for me to call him anyway. Normally, if I needed something, I'd ask Hakame to tell him. But today I didn't have the energy to go downstairs. He answered and said sarcastically, "Wow, look who decided to bless us with a call." I smirked and said, "Lucky you. Not everyone gets this privilege." Then I added, "Mahmoud, I'm going to my sister's house today. I'll be back before sunset." He replied quietly, "What's going on at your sister's house, huh?" I could tell he was around other people, trying not to make a scene. So I said, "Nothing's going on. I just want to go see her. Should I have the driver take me, or should I drive myself?" A few moments later, I realized he must have stepped away from everyone, because his voice got lower and harsher. "I keep trying not to interfere with your life, but you're not a child. You don't just go wherever you want. You only go out when you've learned to ask for permission. Until then, you stay put." Then he hung up. I snapped, "What the hell? Wasn't I literally asking for your permission right now? You idiot." I was fuming. I got dressed and went downstairs. My father-in-law was there. I said politely, "I'm going to my sister's house." He smiled warmly and said, "Go ahead, dear. I'll have the driver take you. Actually, come with me, I'm heading out anyway." I smiled back and said, "Oh no, I don't want to bother you." He waved his hand. "Nonsense. You're my daughter, my precious one. Come on, let's go." He and my father had been very close friends since their army days, so he always treated me like his own daughter. We got in the car and he started chatting, asking how life was going. I didn't say much, just the usual "everything's fine." Then he took a few business calls while driving. When we reached my sister's house, he dropped me off and drove away. I didn't have any cash on me, otherwise I might have gone for a walk or done some shopping. When the driver took me places, he usually waited outside to make sure I went inside. But since my father-in-law dropped me off and left, I finally felt a little bit of freedom, even if it was just a breath of it. Honestly, all I wanted those days was to feel free. To go out, walk around, do something for myself. That's why I came to my sister's house, just to escape for a while. I rang the doorbell. A few minutes later, she opened the door and threw her arms around me. "Oh my God, Najma. I missed you so much. Why don't you come home more often?" I hugged her tightly and kissed her kid, then took off my scarf and sat down. I sighed and said, "They never let me come. Every night there's some excuse. We have guests. It's not proper to go out tonight. Wait till tomorrow. There's always something. I had to fight just to come today." For a second, I felt anxious, thinking maybe Mahmoud would show up angry, but I calmed myself down. I told him, he knows where I am. It's fine. We sat and talked. My sister complained about her sister-in-law giving her a hard time. Then I told her how miserable I was, how heavy and suffocating my life felt. She looked at me sadly and said, "Najma, you've become depressed. In this past year, you've really changed. You're not the same. And we've been so caught up in our own lives that we've let you slip away. We haven't even visited you." I frowned and said, "You don't come anymore, do you?" She sighed. "It's not that I don't want to, but you know how it is. You live with them all in one place. It's awkward for me to visit all the time. Remember the last time I came? Your mother-in-law sat with me the whole time and only got up when I was leaving. What am I supposed to do? Sit there and pretend everything's fine?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I get it." Then I looked her in the eyes and said quietly, "Sis, do you have $30 you can lend me?" She blinked. "Wait, you don't even have $30? I lowered my head. "You can see I don't." Her face fell. She hadn't realized things were that bad for me. She smiled gently and said, "Of course, sweetheart. I'll transfer 500 or 600 to your card. I just got paid, but I'll send you more later." You know my husband covers all our expenses. I keep my salary for myself. I actually spent most of it on gold last month, so I'm a bit short right now. But tell me something, why don't you just ask your husband for money? She looked genuinely confused. Why doesn't he give you any? I let out a deep sigh and said, how am I supposed to ask him for money to buy birth control pills? The moment I do, he'll blow up. I can't say something like that. I need to buy them, that's all. I don't need anything else. If I ever want something, they buy it for me anyway. My sister shook her head and said, you're such an idiot. Do you even realize your husband is the richest man in town? I groaned, flopped down on the couch, and said, whatever, I'm starving. What's for lunch? We ate, and then went out for a bit. I bought the pills, nothing else. She did a little shopping, and, honestly, I started to feel lighter, happier, just being outside for once. After about an hour of walking around, we went back home. We were standing by her door, laughing so hard as she was making fun of one of our relatives who'd said something stupid. But the moment I saw Mahmoud's car pull up, the blood drained from my face. My laughter died instantly. My sister noticed the color leave my cheeks and turned to look. When she saw Mahmoud, she smiled, not realizing how terrified I was, and went to greet him. She somehow managed to convince him to come upstairs. I was shaking so badly I couldn't even look him in the eye. And as he always said, if you're so scared of me, why do you keep doing stupid things? My sister brought some cold drinks and cake, trying to lighten the mood. She chatted a bit with Mahmoud and said, you barely visit us these days. He replied calmly, we've been really busy. You should come over, you've got more free time than we do. They talked a little more. After finishing his drink, Mahmoud said we needed to go. We walked out together. He didn't say a word, not why did you go or why were you out? Nothing. And that silence scared me more than yelling ever could. When we got home, he went straight to the couch and sat down. As I tried to go to the bedroom, he motioned with his hand, sit. Sitting there across from a man who could spot the smallest mistake, I couldn't stop fidgeting with my purse, my hands trembling. He gestured again, closer. I was terrified. I burst into tears and said, Mahmoud, I told you I was going to my sister's. He said nothing, just pointed for me to sit next to him. Then, quietly, didn't I tell you not to go? I stayed silent, staring down. Why were you outside? He pressed. I whispered, my sister insisted. She said I should get out for a bit, clear my head. He frowned deeply. Since when do decent women need to clear their heads by wandering around? Are you a tramp? I stayed quiet, my head still bowed. Then came the question that froze my blood. Why did you go to the pharmacy? What did you need from there? If you needed something, you should have told me. What did you buy? My mouth went dry. I stammered, I didn't need anything. She did. My sister needed something, so she went. He didn't let me finish. He yanked the purse from my hands, opened it, and pulled out the 2 blister packs of pills. He stared at them. That was the first time he ever hit me in the face. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, but I said nothing. I kept my head down. He threw the pills at my feet and said coldly, you know I don't do divorces. It's a disgrace to my name. You won't stay in this house anymore. From now on, you'll live upstairs. I'll bring home a woman who knows how to be a wife. Then he leaned forward and added, and you know as well as I do that your parents don't give a damn about you. Don't even think about running back to them. Stay out of my way. Don't make me do something I'll regret. His voice was low and venomous. If you don't want to have my child, then why are you even here? I tried to steady my trembling hands, opened my purse, and pulled out a small hair clip and comb, gifts I'd bought for my sister and her daughter. I set them on the table and said, these were for my sister. You hit me for no reason. It's fine. You judge me, accuse me, hit me, it's fine. Just don't go around judging others the same way, thinking you're righteous. Then I looked straight into his eyes and continued, if you're done with your nonsense and accusations, I'm leaving. And remember this, I'm not afraid. Not of being alone, not of being without anyone's support. Do whatever you want. I've got enough courage to look you in the eyes and say, I don't want a child with you. If you want kids, go find someone else. I'm not playing this game anymore. For a second, I thought I saw regret in his eyes, just a flicker. Without another word, I grabbed my purse and went into the bedroom. I quickly texted my sister. Call me right now and say I left the pills and your stuff in my bag. Make it sound natural. Hurry. As soon as I saw her typing, okay, I deleted the message. A few minutes later, she called. I stepped out of the room and answered, putting it on speaker. Her voice was gentle, concerned. Hey, you sound sad. Have you been crying? I forced a little laugh. No, I'm fine. Why'd you call? Oh, right, she said, pretending to remember. You accidentally took my stuff with you. The things I bought, can you send them back? I wiped my tears, glanced at Mahmoud, and said calmly, yeah, I'll send them. What exactly did you buy again? She hesitated. What do you mean, what did I buy? You didn't buy anything. We shopped together, remember? Everything was mine. Not that it was much, we didn't even have time to browse properly. I looked Mahmoud straight in the eyes and said shortly, okay. I'll send them. I'll call you later. Then I hung up, turned, and went back into the bedroom. The moment I stepped inside, I wiped my tears and looked at myself in the mirror. So, fooling Mahmoud wasn't that hard after all. He always acted so tough, pretending he knew everything. I glanced at my lip, it was split open. Through clenched teeth, I whispered, hope your hand breaks for what you did. He was so damn proud. Even though he knew deep down he'd hit me unfairly, he never once apologized. That was the second night I stopped sleeping in our bedroom. I started sleeping in the other room, on the tiny single bed. For all his bad habits, he had one good one. He used to massage me until I fell asleep, gentle and caring. He'd made me so used to it that I couldn't sleep without him anymore. But after the stress of those 2 nights, even sleep wouldn't come. I stayed awake until almost morning, waiting for him. He never came. By the 3rd day, I'd gotten myself together again. I hadn't gone downstairs once. I was wearing a light yellow dress, if I remember right, and white slippers. My hair was down. I was sitting in my room reading a book, because honestly, what else could I do? They'd already told me I wasn't allowed to bring my instrument. Apparently, any house that has music in it belongs to the devil. And God doesn't accept prayers said in a house where music is played. So, no instrument. Swimming? Also forbidden. What kind of decent woman undresses and jumps into a pool in front of people? So that was out too. The house had a gym, but every night Mahmoud and his brothers went there to work out from 8 to 10. I never felt like joining them. So yeah, books were my only escape. I was reading when the door opened. He looked at me and said coldly, "You haven't eaten in 2 days. You're mad at me, not yourself. Come out, they brought dinner." I turned my face away without replying and buried myself back in the book. He smirked. "So what now? You want me to beg? You're that childish? What are you even mad about? Anyone in my place would have thought the same. I saw your sister standing outside the pharmacy, and you went in. Then the guys asked around and found out you'd bought pills." I froze, staring down at my book. What a sneaky bastard, he monitored everything I did. He spoke again, harsher this time. "Get up and come out. Stop acting like a child." Then louder. I said come out. Don't expect an apology. Finally, I lifted my head and said, "Sorry isn't enough this time. You need to say I was wrong. Maybe then I could forgive you. Now get out and close the door behind you." He glared at me, eyes full of rage. "What kind of sin created you? You'll see. One day I'll make you regret every word. You know, I always hated men who hit their wives. But you push me to the point where I don't even recognize myself. Why do you make me so angry that I end up doing things I swore I never would?" I stared right back at him. "Tell me, what did I do to deserve this? Why do you treat me like I'm a prisoner? I called you out of respect to let you know where I was going, and you hung up on me without even saying goodbye. Why shouldn't I have gone? It's not like I was going anywhere wrong." He looked straight into my eyes and said coldly, "Whatever I did, you deserved it, and it still wasn't enough. Now get up and come out before I lose my temper. What do I even expect from you? Nothing. I don't even ask you to do chores. I heard you tell the maid not to come upstairs anymore. I brought you here to live in luxury, and this is how you treat me." Something inside me snapped. I started screaming hysterically. "Get out. If this is your so-called paradise, I don't want it. I hate you so much that if I knew you were in heaven, I'd rather burn in hell. Keep your heaven and get the hell out of my life. That's when I got the second slap of my life. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, I swear I'm not Mahmoud if I don't make you regret this day. I'll make sure you beg to come back and realize what a fool you've been. He stormed out and slammed the door behind him. I wiped my tears and whispered, I'm not Najma if I don't make you regret this too. I cried until my chest hurt. Then I picked up my phone, turned on the camera, and filmed myself, showing the split on my lip. This is the second time he's hit me, I said quietly. I don't even know why anymore. There's nothing left of my eyes, beauty. They're always swollen from crying. Every day in this house ends with tears. He thinks I'm just acting spoiled, that I've lost touch with reality. He thinks I believe I'm some kind of princess trapped in a palace. But he doesn't understand. He's the scariest, cruelest man I've ever known. And I don't want him anymore. Even at night, when it was time to sleep, I didn't want him anymore. I hit the end call button and tossed my phone beside me. Back when blogging wasn't even popular, I was already doing it. I don't even know why, but I used to record videos of every part of my life. You know how some people write about the moments when they're really happy or really down? Well, I recorded them instead. It was around 7 p.m. when I finally walked out of my room. I'd been there since morning and hadn't eaten a thing. Honestly, I still didn't have an appetite. Whenever I was upset, I completely lost my desire to eat. I went out and saw they'd brought fava bean rice with meat, bagali polo bia gosht, and put it on a tray. Mahmoud hadn't touched it either. I looked around the house, he wasn't anywhere. Then I realized he must have gone downstairs. I grabbed my phone off the counter. The password was Mahmoud's birthday and mine, followed by the year we met. I typed it in and suddenly realized it wasn't my wallpaper. I turned the phone over and froze. It was Mahmoud's phone. My mind went blank. His password was the same as mine. I immediately covered the selfie camera with my hand. It wouldn't be surprising if that control freak had installed something to take pictures automatically. Then I started going through his phone. The first thing that stood out, tons of messages from women. Lawyers, coworkers, people from his office, all beautiful, stylish, some conservative, some flirty. I looked at how he texted them, polite, professional, distant. He'd read 90% of their messages and never replied. I shook my head. Wow, at least he's good at that, I whispered. After checking everything, I went into his gallery. There were endless photos of legal files, court documents, boring stuff like that. Then I saw a hidden folder. It needed a password. I looked up at the ceiling and said, if this folder's password is my birthday, I'll forgive him. I entered my birthday and it opened. All the photos were of me. I smiled and whispered, God, if I'd said anything else, this wouldn't have happened. There were videos and pictures of me from our wedding day, from our trips, even selfies of us together. When I saw that he'd used my birthday as the password and that he wasn't messaging any woman inappropriately, I softened, just a little. I told myself, all right, he's hit you twice, let it go. Maybe it was partly your fault too. I turned his phone off after putting everything back exactly the way it was and left it on the table. Then I went into our bedroom, looking for something to wear. I noticed Mahmoud's clothes were messy, which meant he'd been doing things on his own these 3 days. I'd locked myself in my room. I started folding his clothes neatly, then turned to my side of the closet. When I reached for my clothes, my hand bumped into his bag. It fell to the floor. The moment it hit the ground, a pile of photos spilled out. And those photos were horrifying. I mean, truly disturbing, the kind of images no one should ever see. Things I can't even describe here. Imagine pictures showing scenes of extreme violence, things no one should capture. Some were of women, mutilated, lifeless. I can't even repeat what I saw. When I looked at one photo of a woman whose body was torn open from her legs to her neck, my vision went black, and I fainted. Not that I was overly sensitive. I'd always been a little emotional, yes, but this was beyond anything I could handle. Never in my life had I imagined Mahmoud's job could involve something so terrifying. When one of the photos slid closer to me, I screamed uncontrollably. Somehow, Mahmoud appeared out of nowhere, panicked. When he saw what I was screaming over, he froze, then quickly gathered all the pictures from the floor. I had sworn I'd never speak to him again until he apologized, until he said I was wrong. But in that moment, shaking and crying in terror, I threw myself into his arms. I held onto him tightly, terrified that if he let go, those images would come to life and come after me. That's how terrifying they were. I'd never seen anything like that, not on social media, not on TV, nowhere. Early in our marriage, he told me I was never allowed to touch his briefcase because sometimes he brought case files home. He said it didn't happen often, but when it did, I shouldn't go near it. And I hadn't until that moment when it just fell on its own. We sat on the bed. I was still crying, trembling. He gently rubbed my back and said softly, "Didn't I tell you not to touch my bag?" Through my tears, I looked up and said, "I swear I didn't." It fell while I was tidying up. "Mahmoud, what were those pictures?" And I swear, I could see a faint smirk forming on his face. I mean, how much horror does a person have to see in their life to look at those photos and still smile? He was staring at me, and I could see that faint grin forming on his lips. With my chin trembling and sobs breaking through my voice, I said, "I was so scared of that man, of that child. Oh God, that woman. Why did she look like that? What happened to them?" He brushed my hair back and said calmly, "Don't think about them. Pretend you saw nothing. Erase it from your mind. You don't need to know their stories. If you do, they'll stay in your head forever. Forget them. It was my mistake. I shouldn't have brought those photos home. It just happened. I wasn't in the mood to go to the office today, so I came straight home from court." He looked at me and said softly, "Come here, closer." Still crying, I whispered, "I was really scared, Mahmoud. Really." He smirked and said, "Maybe fear is the only thing that can straighten you out. Where have you been these 3 nights? I can't even sleep without you. I can't focus on work. You can't just sulk over every little argument like a child." I sniffled and said quietly, "I want to go to my parents' house for a while. I need to think, figure things out." I knew he wouldn't let me go. After all, he was my husband. I'd known him for a year now. And the way I was clinging to him, crying, wearing that short dress, I knew he'd never let me leave until he got what he wanted. He wiped my tears and said, "How long are you planning to stay there?" I shrugged. "I don't know. A week, 2, maybe a month. I just need some time." He kissed my forehead and said, "No, you can't go. Every couple argues, every couple fights. It's normal. Now go wash your face. I'll warm up the food while you're gone." I glanced toward the bathroom and said nervously, "I can't. I'm scared. Wait outside while I wash my face and come back." He looked at me like I was the dumbest person alive and said, "Fine, so now you want to make me your prisoner too? Come on, what are you even afraid of? They're just photos." But as soon as he said that, the images came flooding back to my mind. And I started sobbing again. They were so scary. That's why you're so scary too. He rolled his eyes, grabbed my arm, and pulled me toward the bathroom. "Enough nonsense," he muttered. I washed my hands and face while he stood there. Then we came out and went to the kitchen. He sat at the table and said, "Warm up the food." I did. Then I placed a plate in front of him. He looked surprised. "You're not eating?" I lifted my shoulder slightly, trying to look innocent, and said softly, "No, I can't." He frowned. "What do you mean you can't? You haven't eaten in days. Who goes hungry for days over some silly fight? For God's sake, Najma, stop acting like a child." I bit my lip and whispered, "I just can't eat. Every time I try, my lips burn." "You eat. Enjoy." He sighed. I could see a hint of regret in his eyes. But he was too stubborn to back down. He said, "You can talk so much but can't eat? Come sit here. Open your mouth, eat something. I'll take you out afterward." Honestly, I wanted to go out. I was tired of crying, tired of being trapped. So I opened my mouth as he brought the spoon close. He chuckled softly. "I'm practicing how to feed a baby with you." But the truth was, every bite burned. My mouth actually hurt. He noticed, and after a few minutes, he lost his appetite too. I stood up and said, "Okay, I'll go get ready so we can go out." He nodded slightly. I went to our room, but the moment I was alone, the fear crept back in. I turned and called out, Can you come here while I grab some clothes? He snapped. Najma, what is wrong with you? Those photos had nothing to do with you. You weren't supposed to see them. You saw them by accident, fine, but this childish fear? What are you afraid of, huh? That they'll come back to life and haunt you? What will you do tomorrow morning when I'm gone? Tears filled my eyes again. That's why I said I want to go to my parents' house, Mahmoud. I swear I'm not pretending. I'm really scared. I swore I'd never make up with you, but here I am, going out with you. Please, just come here. Stay with me. I'm genuinely terrified. Something in my voice must have convinced him, because he finally came. We were supposed to go out, but when I went to grab my clothes, things went further. I ended up in his arms again. We never left the house that night. When I saw those photos, I realized my husband wasn't a normal man. Someone who sees things like that every day is bound to be different, harder, colder. His spirit wasn't like mine. I told myself I had to adjust, to learn how to live with someone like him. Expecting him to change for me would never happen. It would only make me suffer. Being with Mahmoud, taming him, couldn't be that hard, right? He held me all night when I was scared. What kind of man sets his phone password to match his wife's? Who keeps her photos in a hidden folder, locked with her birthday? He must love me. He just doesn't know how to show it. Every marriage has its struggles, its challenges. Mine is learning to adapt to survive this life. I sat down, grabbed a pen and paper, and started writing. What makes Mahmoud and me drift apart? What makes me feel suffocated in this house? The first thing that came to my mind was this. Mahmoud is gone all day. When he comes home, there's no real us. We go downstairs, eat among other people, guests, relatives, doesn't matter. By the time we come back up, it's already 10 o'clock. After dinner, we usually drink tea and talk a little. By the time we come back upstairs, it's already 11:30 or midnight. Then he's tired, he just lies down and falls asleep. That was the first problem. The second was that he never had the energy to joke or talk with me. He'd come straight to the point, do what he wanted, and then fall asleep again. And honestly, who could blame him? It's midnight when he finally lies down. There's no time for anything else. The third problem was that we never watched movies together. We didn't even know each other's interests because we never really talked. By the time I finished writing, I had a list of 42 reasons why Mahmoud and I were drifting apart. I put that sheet aside, grabbed another, and wrote at the top in big letters. What should I do? Then I started listing things I could actually do, and that very day, I began working on them. It was late afternoon when Hakame called me. Why haven't you come downstairs these past few days? She asked. I said, oh sorry. I've been busy cleaning downstairs for days. Got so tired I couldn't make it. She paused. All right, well, come down tonight. We have guests. I cleared my throat. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. I think I'm coming down with something. I'd better rest. She hesitated for a second, then hung up. I sighed and muttered, whatever. My peace is more important than anything else. So, what if she's mad? I got up, cleaned the whole house, took a long shower, did my makeup, put on perfume, and wore a nice outfit. Then I went to the kitchen and opened the freezer empty. I opened the fridge, also empty. What was I supposed to make for dinner? I decided not to cook at all. There was nothing to cook anyway. While I was making tea, I heard the door open. Mahmoud was home. I smiled, walked up to him, and wrapped my arms around his neck, something I'd always wanted to do. Normally, I'd just greet him shyly, whisper a soft hi, maybe ask how his day was. But somehow, after all our fights, and even that slap, I felt bolder. I started teasing him, being playful, and surprisingly, he didn't seem to mind. He even played along. After washing his hands and face, he changed into something comfortable and came out saying, "There are guests downstairs. We should go." I brushed my hair aside and said softly, "Can we skip tonight? Let's stay home, watch a movie, order pizza. Just be together for once." He hesitated for a moment, then said, "Sure, sweetheart. Why not? Sounds nice. What movie are we watching? Do we have snacks?" I sat down on the couch and laughed. "No, there's nothing at home. But tell me something, you don't like my cooking, do you?" He looked up from his phone, surprised. I smiled and said, "My cooking is actually really good. Why don't you ever want to eat what I make?" A faint smile appeared on his face. "I didn't think you liked cooking." "I'd love that, honestly." "You like cooking?" I closed my eyes and smiled. "I love it. Let me cook for you. We can still go downstairs twice a week so the family doesn't get upset. Once every week or two, we'll visit my parents. Mom keeps complaining that you never come. When I tell her to visit us, she says, no, he should come here. So, let's go to my parents sometimes. And on the other days, I'll cook for you. When you come home from work, you'll eat food made by me. Don't worry, it'll taste great." To my surprise, he suddenly lifted me off the ground, actually picked me up. He kissed me again and again until I couldn't stop laughing. When he said, "I'd die for your cooking, sweetheart," I froze in shock. This man never said things like that. He wasn't the affectionate type at all. But right then, I realized something. When you take one step toward fixing your life, your partner takes one too. That's what a healthy relationship is when both move together. And, honestly, I would have taken 1,000 more steps for him. He ordered snacks, 2 pizzas, and I picked out 3 movies. 1 romantic, 1 crime thriller, because he's into that kind of stuff. And 1 drama. I told him, "I don't really know your taste, since you never talk about what you like." So I picked 3 to figure it out. To my surprise, he liked all of them. He said it had been years since he'd last watched a movie, and that tonight felt really good. I looked beautiful that night, even I could feel it. I took my phone and snapped a few photos of us together. They turned out so nice that I made one of them my wallpaper. Before going to sleep, I thanked him for spending the evening with me. The next day around noon, someone knocked on the door. When I opened it, it was one of the downstairs helpers. Her hands full of bags and packages. She said the guard had sent those bags. Then, with an embarrassed smile, she added, "Ma'am, you don't like my cooking anymore?" I was surprised. The other 2 ladies never wanted to cook themselves. I opened my arms, pulled her into a hug, and said softly, "I could only bear missing my mom because of you, because of your cooking. You made it easier. But now I want to cook myself for Mahmoud." He told me it's always been his dream for his wife to cook for him. And honestly, I'm home all day doing nothing, so why not? She smiled and said, "That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that." Then she helped me unpack everything we had bought. Washed the chicken, packed the meat, even helped me grind the beef and organize the fridge. When everything was clean and tidy, we both went downstairs for evening prayer. I prayed so much for her. She was one of those women who are useful everywhere, in every way. The first meal I ever cooked in that house was bean rice. After cooking, I cleaned the whole house and took care of myself. I wasn't the same woman anymore, not bored, not trapped by silence and empty walls. For once, I had a plan for my life, and it was working. I turned the heat down under the pot and went out to the balcony. My mother-in-law saw me, glared coldly, and looked away. I sighed. I'll talk to her someday, I told myself. But not now. That night, Mahmoud came home a bit late, around 10 p.m. When he opened the door, I greeted him warmly with a smile. He said he'd eaten lunch really late, and after work, he'd gone upstairs to work out. I touched his arms playfully, feeling his muscles, and showered him with affection. Something I'd never had the courage to do before. I already knew he loved bean rice. His father and brothers didn't, they preferred plain rice with stew on top. But Mahmoud always ordered bean rice whenever we ate out. So when he came in and saw what I'd made, his face lit up. He was so happy. I'll never forget that night. We laughed, joked, he made funny faces imitating me. I laughed so much I barely realized what I was eating. After dinner, I put my hand on his and said quietly, "Those photos I saw, they really hurt me. Even now, thinking about them makes me sick. But they also helped me understand you better." He looked at me and asked, "What do you mean?" I smiled. "Like those nights when you came home and didn't feel like talking. Or those days when you were distant. I used to think you didn't love me. That I didn't matter to you, that our marriage meant nothing. But now I get it, your job is so hard. It's normal to feel low sometimes, to come home depressed or tired. To have your mind elsewhere." It was like, for the first time, someone really understood him. He leaned toward me and said, "You actually get that? You're better than all those therapists I've seen. I've been to so many, but I can't seem to heal myself. You know what I realized? Every judge is affected by what they see. We pretend to be tough, keep a straight face, act like nothing gets to us. But deep down, it leaves a mark. We've learned to deal with pain, not express it. Our job is to solve problems, not to cry about them. But still, it affects us." I smiled and said softly, "Then I promise, whenever it gets too heavy, I'll sneak into your mind and help lighten it up." He looked at me and said, "You've changed so much. You're different. Before, you barely cared when I came home." I leaned my head on my hand and said, "I was terrified of you. I don't even know why. You're not scary, you're actually kind of cute. I don't know why I was so afraid." He laughed. "And now? You're not afraid anymore." I almost said, "Since the day you slapped me," but I didn't. Instead, I shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe because you've changed too. You smile more. You don't frown all the time." He smirked. "Guess I made a mistake. You're still the same smart mouth." I cleared the table, washed the dishes, made some tea and fruit. And we went out to the balcony again. He was working on his laptop. When he did, the whole house had to stay silent. I never really knew what kind of work it was, but I knew it required complete focus. I quietly placed the tea beside him and began peeling fruit, arranging it nicely on a plate. He smiled and said, "I just had an hour of work left. I'm done now. Let's turn this into our night together." I smiled back. "If you still need to work, go ahead. It's only 10:30. You can finish by 11. He looked surprised. "Really? That'd be great. Thank you." I closed my eyes and whispered, "Why not love? That's what understanding each other means." He worked for half an hour, not like before, when half an hour turned into midnight. Then we sat together, ate fruit, watched a show, turned off the lights, fooled around a little, and fell asleep. Life was finally showing me its soft side. During the days, I'd visit Hakame. Sometimes my mom. Mom was always so happy when I came by. Twice or 3 times a week, Mahmoud and I would go downstairs too. But things with Hakame weren't smooth. She thought I was taking her son away from her. At least, that's what my sisters-in-law kept telling me. They said she gossiped about me inside all the time, and complained that her house felt empty now. She'd say she was embarrassed when guests asked where her son was. She talked so much behind my back that one day, I decided to speak directly to my father-in-law. I invited him over for lunch. That day, Hakame was out visiting one of her relatives. I invited my father-in-law for lunch that day. Mahmoud wasn't home. When my father-in-law came upstairs, I had already set the table. He sat down, smiled, and said, "You really cooked all this yourself? Mashallah, what a capable girl your parents raised." We started eating. No one in the family ever dared to look him in the eye. He had this strong, commanding presence. But when it was just the two of us, he was surprisingly kind. He told stories from his past. I listened and laughed. The more he spoke, the more I saw how much he and Mahmoud were alike. At first glance, you'd think they were cold and harsh, like the kind of men who'd snap if you said one wrong word. But deep down, they were warm, calm, and good-hearted. After lunch, we went to the living room. I poured him tea, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "I wanted to talk to you about something important. My relationship with Mahmoud wasn't good before. We were distant and cold. We decided not to come downstairs too often anymore. Not because being around the family caused problems, but because we needed time alone. He's at work all day, and when he comes home, we barely get a moment together. We love family gatherings, really we do. We come downstairs too, 3 times a week. But we also need our own space. Ever since we made that decision, our marriage has gotten so much better." I tried talking to Hakame about it, but she didn't really understand. I heard she's upset with me, so I wanted to explain it to you myself. I know it's not proper for me to talk about family matters like this, but I'm doing it for the sake of my marriage. I just hope you understand. He smiled gently, crossed one leg over the other, and said, "No wonder I liked you from the very beginning. Then he leaned back and started telling me a story. When Raggy, my other daughter-in-law, first got married, her husband was, well, he strayed a lot. He's in the military, always around beautiful women. People think only desperate women fall into those kinds of affairs. But in truth, 70% of them are bold, confident, attractive women. Anyway, he was more exposed to temptation than most men. I used to tell Raggy, spend more time upstairs, be around your husband. But she didn't listen. One day she got upset and told me she didn't want us coming downstairs anymore. I thought to myself, what difference does it make whether you're upstairs or downstairs? All I wanted was for her to be close to her husband. She never understood that. Eventually, when their second child was born, my son finally settled down. If he hadn't changed, she never could have fixed that marriage. That's why I'm glad. Before anyone had to step in. Before even my wife thought about it. You took charge of your marriage yourself. Why should we be upset about you spending less time downstairs? The only thing that would upset us is if you and Mahmoud weren't happy. Even if you never come downstairs again. As long as you're both happy, that's what matters. Then his tone shifted a little. I'm going to tell you something, because you're smart enough to understand. I don't want you to cause trouble. Don't spread it around. And don't overreact. Just be aware. He paused, then asked, you and Mahmoud had problems before, right? I nodded. Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago it was awful. But things are finally getting better. He gave a faint smile. Good. Thank God. Then he hesitated again, tapping his fingers on the table. Do you know that Marzi isn't really my daughter? I froze. What? Marzi, my sister-in-law, not his daughter? I looked up at him, shocked. What do you mean? Isn't she your daughter? He smiled faintly. No, she's not. Marzi isn't related to us by blood. When she was a little girl, she survived a terrible accident. She was supposed to be sent to an orphanage. But at the last minute, I couldn't let that happen. I brought her home instead. Hakame raised her as her own. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. Why Marzi always wore so many layers of clothes around her brothers. Why she acted distant and uncomfortable near them. But before I could even process that, he went on. Recently, her biological father has reappeared. He's talking about lawsuits, claiming we took his daughter away and kept her hidden all these years. Back then, we only did what we thought was right. We didn't want her to grow up in an orphanage. But now, things are complicated. So the plan is to have Marzi marry someone in this family. Just on paper. So her last name matches ours. That way, when her father sues, we can say she's still part of this household through marriage. We don't know yet which of my sons she'll marry. It's a tangled situation. But we might have no other choice. Now listen carefully. I'm telling you this not so you'll fight with your mother-in-law. Or guilt her into keeping quiet. I just want you to know what's going on. Hakame wants Marzi to marry Mahmoud. And you know him. Once a name goes into his ID, he won't let anyone erase it. Of course, I got to know him this way. Pay attention so that nothing like this happens. Even though Marzi calls them brothers, they aren't. There's no blood relation at all. This marriage isn't religiously wrong. It could happen. Since you're working so hard on your life, don't let something like this happen. I realized how late it was, and my mouth was literally hanging open. So much so that I couldn't even close it with my hand. I kept thinking, what? Marzi isn't their daughter? They grew up all their lives as siblings, talking endlessly about religion and morality. And yet such a marriage seems acceptable to them. How could Mahmoud even consider marrying Marzi? I shook my head and thought, Hakame, you sly one. Back when we were fighting, Mahmoud would go downstairs. And that Marzi must have been acting up in front of him. I looked at the pot of gourmet sabzi on the stove and thought, I gave this man a meal and now everything's revealed. He said, I would have given him kebab instead. I had no idea why he suddenly said that. Why should it even matter which of his sons Marzi marries? The family has no shame. Marzi was their daughter yesterday, and suddenly she's their daughter-in-law today. From that day on, I never let Mahmoud go downstairs alone. As soon as his car pulled in, I knew he had gone downstairs. And I would quickly follow. I started noticing the signs. Marzia's eyes were swollen, clearly from crying. No one cared about her except Mahmoud. It was like my eyes were finally open. I occasionally saw her going with Mahmoud, confiding in him. It made me furious, but there was nothing I could do. I just stayed alert as much as possible. Then one day, Mahmoud announced in front of everyone that someone was coming to propose for Marzi. Everyone asked who. He said, "A close friend of mine. He's a good guy. If Marzi likes him, I guarantee he's a good match." I breathed a sigh of relief. The suitor came a very good young man. Marzi liked him, and they got married. I didn't know all the details of how they arranged it, but I learned one thing. Mahmoud took full responsibility and told everyone, "Don't make this girl miserable, or it will ruin our reputation." Even legally, if someone were to investigate, we wouldn't be blamed because we raised an orphan. But to avoid legal complications, they arranged this marriage so everything looked proper. Afterwards, things calmed down. It's been 6 or 7 years since then. I have one child. Mahmoud insists on having another. But I said we should wait until the first one goes to school and grows a bit. He kept arguing that the child needs a playmate. I reminded him, the building is already full of kids. Zara has 3, Raghi has 4, I have 1. Our child already plays with them. What more is needed? Even now, there are still some disagreements. But thank God they pass. We've learned to understand each other over time, and gradually we've discovered each other's interests. I want to tell you, if you marry in a traditional way, give each other space, get to know each other's work, and learn about each other's families. That way, you can understand each other better. I knew my husband was a judge, but I didn't know how hard his job was. I used to avoid him, afraid that if I got close, we'd fight. Now I can sit beside him, and he says nothing harsh at all. Of course, I'm still careful, so it doesn't turn into a huge argument. So that's how it is. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll definitely read your comments, dear friends. I appreciate your presence and support. I leave you in God's care. Take care.